Thank you. So I have confirmation the live stream has started. Our apologies for the slight delayed start. We have a technical difficulty which is now resolved. I'm glad to say on most occasions we don't have this problem, so this is unusual. So welcome to this meeting of the Cabinet. In addition to the Cabinet members and other councillors present in the room, we also have some councillors joining our meeting remotely. I will now check that they can hear us, and we then. We have Councillor Jenny Bartlett. Councillor Jenny Bartlett not available. Councillor Terry James. Councillor Jonathan Lester.
Yes, thank you. I can hear you and see you all.
Thank you. Councillor Bob Matthews.
Yes, I can hear you and see you, Leader.
Councillor Tony Fagan.
Yes, I can hear and see you. Thank you.
Councillor William Wilding.
Yes, I can hear and see. Thank you.
And the two scrutiny chairs, that's Councillor Philip Howells and Councillor Alyssa Swinglehurst.
Good afternoon, Leader. Yes, I can hear and see you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We also have a number of officers attending who will be introduced as they are called upon. Thank you. I will now formally open the meeting. The agenda papers and other relevant information for this meeting are available for public viewing on the Herefordshire Council website. Council is streaming this meeting live on the Herefordshire Council YouTube channel and making a recording. To ensure that recording quality is maintained, please speak as clearly as possible and keep background noise to a minimum. Microphones should be muted when you are not speaking. Please ensure that mobile phones and other devices are turned to silent. Others are permitted to film, photograph and record our public meetings, provided that it does not disrupt the business of the meetings. As we move through the agenda, in addition to discussion by Cabinet members, I will invite group leaders or their representatives in turn to provide views and questions from their group on each item. Where appropriate, I will also call on scrutiny chairpersons to comment on behalf of their committee. Voting will be undertaken by a show of hands in the room. Only Cabinet members may vote. So first item is apologies for absence. I have received, or we have received apologies for absence from Councillors John Hardwick, Alan Selden, Peter Ginman and Yolandi Watson. Are there any other apologies for absence? No, we do not have any others. Declarations of interest. Are there any section 1, schedule 1, schedule 2 or other interest for items on the agenda today? No, I hear none. Item 3, minutes of the previous meeting held on the 3rd of June. No matters of accuracy have been notified to the monitoring officer. Cabinet members, are you content that the minutes are an accurate record? If you would show by hands. Thank you very much. Item 4 is to receive any questions from members of the public. Questions have been received from members of the public, and the first question is from Mr. D. Hill. As far as I'm aware, Mr. D. Hill has no supplementary question. The second question is from Ms. J. Souter from Leicester, and again, as far as I know, she's not present and not asking a supplemental question. Mr. M. Wilmot, I don't know at the moment whether he has a supplemental question. Mr. Wilmot, are you online or present?
Leader, I haven't received a supplementary question from Mr. Wilmot.
Thank you. And Mr. Dr. Geeson, he also does not have a supplementary question. So I think this is your day, Councillor Harrington. You're doing quite well so far. Things have changed. Mrs. V. Webb-Prosser does have a supplemental question, and I don't know whether Mrs. Webb-Prosser is available or she sent a written supplemental.
She submitted a written supplemental. Would you like to read it out?
Yes, please. Yes. So this will be read out.
Leader, sorry, Kate Charlton's got her hand up. I don't know if there's something she wanted to contribute. Kate?
Yes, certainly. Kate.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to offer an apology to Mr. Wilmot. Unfortunately, we had to respond to his question late. We weren't able to publish it until after 12:30 today. Sometimes there are occasions when we do have to take careful consideration of the response that we need to provide, but I will be looking into this further, and I would like to, on behalf of Democratic Services, offer an apology, and we will review our process in terms of responding to written questions.
Now, I have no means of knowing whether that was heard by the general public. It was fairly quiet. The microphones here are low at the moment, or the loudspeakers. But I understand that
So do you want to recap, Leader, for the benefit of the microphones?
Can you do that?
Sorry.
I was recapping. So basically, I think the response was late from us, which has probably not given Mr. Hill, this is Mr. Wilmot's question 3, has not given him the opportunity to respond. Democratic Services have offered their apology, and I would imagine that if Mr. Wilmot would like to submit a supplemental question, if you'd like to do that, we will get that turned around as quickly as possible for him. So moving on then to Mrs. Wegg-Prosser, who does have a supplementary. It's come up on our screens. I can't read it.
I can read it, Chair.
Okay. Caroline, you might need to speak up.
Thank you. The question from Mrs. Webb-Prosser is as follows. Thank you for this response to my question. I note in your reply to question 4 that you anticipate recommencing detailed work for the delivery of the transport hub. And yet in your reply to my question 5, you indicate that additional capital funds may be required for this purpose. I asked if the stronger towns and national bus strategy funds could be accessed to speed up delivery of the transport hub. Can you confirm that such funds will not be accessed to finance previous overcosts on the City Link Road element of the HCCTP, and that remaining sums of money earmarked for the transport hub in the original 40 million HCCTP budget will also not be accessed for that purpose? That's a question.
Can you just read the last sort of paragraph? Sorry, Caroline.
Can you confirm?
Yeah.
Can you confirm that such funds will not be accessed to finance previous overcosts on the City Link Road element of the HCCTP, and that remaining sums of money earmarked for the transport hub in the original 40 million HCCTP budget will also not be accessed for that purpose?
The short answer is that we will have to reassess the budget. We won't be accessing the funds that she's referenced, but we will have to do a piece of work, which we're doing now, to understand where the budget lies. As I indicated in that reply, there'll be a separate report coming shortly to Cabinet to fully explain the situation in regard to Hereford City Centre transport package. And part of that will explain what budget is left and where we will have to seek further funding. But we are utterly committed to delivering the transport hub, improvements to Commercial Street, Newmarket and Blue School Street, and all the other outcomes identified in that package.
Thank you, Councillor Harrington. Question 6 is from Ms. Mary Waker. There is no supplementary, as I understand. So I will move on to item 5, which is to receive any questions from councillors. We have received 2 questions and responses have been supplied. Councillors have been given the opportunity to submit a supplementary question and to ask their supplemental live. Councillor Yolandi Watson does not have a supplementary, but I understand that Councillor Wilding does have a supplementary. Councillor Wilding, would you care to put your supplementary? That would be helpful.
Thank you, Leader, and thanks for the answers we got. We obviously welcome the news on school transport and behaviour change. Just to put behaviour change into context, the vast majority of councils have declared a climate emergency and developed plans to get to carbon zero, but only 3 or 4 have clear and obvious links to these plans on the pages of their website, the front page, I should have said. Sadly, Herefordshire is not one of these. So can we have an assurance that the need to communicate to residents our commitment to zero carbon is of the most importance, the utmost importance, because it leads to behaviour change? So can I request that we insist on clearer and more obvious links and regular top banner headlines on the council website? And can I also ask that we plan a big push later this year when COP26 happens? I'll just add to that, there's a headline here for the Hereford Times, which is "Headlines Get Attention." Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wilding. I don't know whether Councillor Chowns would like to respond to that.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Wilding, for your question, and I can confirm that paper will be coming to Cabinet, I hope, at the end of July, which will make proposals for use of the climate reserve, including setting aside funding for a major communications campaign. So watch this space on that, and I agree with you that very strong county-wide messaging on the need for urgent climate action will be important, in line with the upcoming COP conference in Glasgow at the end of this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chowns. Moving on then, down the agenda, item 6 is the Hereford Transport Strategy, and the purpose of this is to agree the approach to progressing the development and delivery of the Transport Strategy 2021-22, and to allocate funds required to support the development and delivery of the activities set out in this report. This item begins on page 15 of the agenda pack, and I will hand over to Councillor Harrington for an introduction.
Thank you, Leader. I'll introduce this item and I'll hand over to Steve Burgess, who's the officer who's taken much time and care, along with other officers, to provide a coherent reflection of this council's transport strategy and these costed allocations for the money agreed by full council in February. That permission be given to us by full council, crucially, alongside the more substantive strategy decisions of stopping progress on the Hereford and South-wide transport packages, allowed us to use this revenue money of 1.24 million to add in-house capacity to our transport team, and gives us the resource to progress implementation of our strategy at pace. There are already 2 and will be soon 3 extra Herefordshire Council employed officers now working on this strategy, which is precisely where projects of this importance should be managed and not outsourced to other consultants or contractors until the appropriate time. We now control our pace and direction, and we have made provision in our strategy to allow us to increase that pace of delivery further as further funding streams start to become available. I commend Steve and his team for producing a report that is as precise and as robust as possible to make sure we have the rigour and clear direction that I believe we have been lacking in previous transport plans, and which is needed for any successful project or projects to be delivered on time and on budget, an approach which has been notably lacking in the last 10 years under previous administrations. Priority improvements for transport in Hereford have been laid out in this report, and the funding allocated for development of our key schemes, including safer routes to school, an exemplar walking and cycling network, enhanced bus service, and a new river crossing to the east of the city, in order for us to meet our commitments in responding honestly and urgently to the climate and ecological emergency, to support our business community, to practically address the resilience need for a second river crossing, to provide better and healthier travel options wherever possible for our residents and for our children, to enable us to respond to the clear direction given to us by General Scrutiny Committee and full council in February, and most crucially, the direction given to us by our national government to make modal shift and public transport the natural first choice. As well as having the funding allocated here to take forward our key schemes, we have also secured government funding to develop proposals for the improved bus service across the county through the government's recently published National Bus Strategy, which allows us to enter into enhanced partnerships with our local bus operators to work in a way to work in partnership with local operators towards an optimal service. That is the reason, if anyone's noticed, the allocation against our bus strategy in this document seems scant. We have secured that money directly from government, and it's not mentioned here in detail. In addition to the key strategic policies, we have also added more revenue separately to our department budget so that we can look more closely at a number of proposals to improve travel in the wider county, including continuing to support plans for a new Parkway railway station at Pontrilas, facilitating schools to provide transport at cost to parents and smart lift sharing, and community-led proposals such as rural greenways projects, and looking to make improvements to connectivity between the A465 and the A49, in line with the assurances I gave members in February. This money will enable the council to assess the benefits and determine which of these extra projects should be taken forward at pace. The Hereford Transport Strategy is a long-term forward view and plan. We can't do everything at once, but we will be able to deliver some elements very quickly, including tackling our school run issues and developing an enhanced partnership with our bus operators. We can now also pick up the pace with plans for a second river crossing, giving the city that much needed resilience. This is an exciting time, and I commend the strategy and approach and look forward to working with all members across all parties to produce the quickest and the best results for transport in Herefordshire in the 21st century. I mean that last sentence sincerely. Times have changed since our last transport strategy was laid out, and we must all move with those times for a better environment and economy. I shall now hand over to Steve to go through the report. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Councillor Harrington. I think you've covered the main points there. Perhaps if I highlight some of the context of the report and I think some of the positives on the national agenda. So at paragraph 5, just summarise some of the key documents and policy statements from government since we actually commenced our review in Hereford. So I think it's fair to say we're slightly ahead of the curve, but decarbonising transport was published in March last year. We're still waiting for follow-up from the Department for Transport. Gear change, which focused on walking and cycling, was published in July last year, and the National Bus Strategy came out in March this year. Those last two documents, we've got identified funding attached from government of 2 billion towards the gear change strategy around cycling and 3 billion for buses. And so it's timely that we're focusing on that within our strategy and this work that we've set out in the report for this year, hopefully intersecting with the opportunity to bid into government funds.
Steve, I think if you could slow down just a little bit and perhaps a little bit louder.
Significantly around the Bus Back Better strategy, the National Bus Strategy, government's talking about revenue and capital support to support that strategy, and that's something that's really important in Herefordshire because the aspirations around the bus network, not just in the city, but county-wide, are likely to require additional revenue support. So that's really timely that we've been able to pick up on that piece of work this year. I think finally, in terms of the overall costs, we've updated the costs that were set out in the review that we finalised in November last year. So we've got some more detailed costs around the development for the strategy, and those are included in the resources section. But just in summary, £140 million total CAC delivery costs spread across active travel, buses, demand management and the Eastern Road Link, and 6 million upfront in terms of project development, and this 1.24 million identified in the report is the first stage of that, and it's focused on getting the projects that we've identified and the interventions to a stage where they'll be capital ready as fast as possible and be able to fit into that national pot. I think that's to add to Councillor Harrington's comments.
Okay, thanks, Steve. I think there'll be follow-up questions, which I'll probably upload onto you. So don't worry.
Right, so any questions or issues of clarification from anybody? I suppose one of my interests, and I think for a lot of the public, the interests are speed and how quickly we can move. So with reference to the Eastern River crossing, Steve, I think there's some suggestion it might take up to 8 years, but I think we're pushing for something much quicker than that, sort of a 5-year period. Don't want to kind of overcommit in any way. We don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. We want to make sure we're delivering. But the frustration is this project to have an additional river crossing. It's been going on for so long. Can you just give us your thoughts on whether a shorter time period is possible? How do you think we can deliver that for the residents?
Well, I think certainly for this, the funding that we've set aside this year, one of the tasks there is to look at that programme and identify any work that can bring forward that estimate of 8 years. So I'll say that'll be something we'll be able to get more clarity on in this work that we'll do this year. You've got to bear in mind with a big project like that, there are sort of statutory processes that you need to go to, and those aren't in the control of the council typically, and formal process and legal processes. So they're often an area of uncertainty in terms of the programming that we've had done is perhaps taking a cautious approach to that, but that's something that the initial detail work can map out and see if that can be made as short as possible. So I think we've indicated we'll try and aim for 5 years in the documents, and that's subject to this piece of work that will be taken forward this year to add some more clarity for that time frame.
So you heard it first from Steve.
Well, yeah, I mean, exactly. It's not really an officer's remit to promise the pace of delivery. That's our job, and we will be doing that, because anything that you want to deliver, and we're not just talking about an Eastern Crossing, we're talking about the other measures which are going to have a huge impact on our congestion and our transport network. We can push the pace, and by taking the control, by giving extra capacity within our transport teams, which have been severely reduced over the years, and we've developed a habit of allowing other consultants to do that work for us at a time where I think we should be doing it ourselves before we do outsource. By doing that in-house and by providing that extra capacity, we will get pace. Any problem, if you put more effort towards it, will be reduced in terms of its timescales. And we just have to match that. And as Steve said, there are some statutory timelines, but those are not the issues normally. It's normally the sort of 2 or 3 weeks between reports, or 2 or 3 months between reports, and other issues that tend to cause the delays, because officers are overstretched. They're not overstretched now. We have a good strategy. We've addressed a problem that people previously haven't addressed.
So the kind of follow-up question is okay, that's the longer term project, but what about dealing with issues which are now the congestion on the roads which we have, to get something done fairly quickly? Are there proposals in this paper which will bring some things along more quickly, which are perhaps not the big capital items?
Yes, there are. There are direct proposals to reduce the impact of the school run, which, as we know, Hereford City is the major cause of our congestion, or contributes probably the most significant amount of our congestion. We have identified there is money laid out to help with school travel plans. There is money laid out to help with communications. Part of the issue is good communications. If a council is not giving direction to its residents and asking it to consider travelling a different way, and trying to provide, protected cycleways in order, or protect all routes that exist, but making sure people are aware of them and that the culture is changing, then that's something that the public is not going to follow you. And so there are many elements we can do quickly, particularly with walking and cycling. Some of that will be followed shortly by the infrastructure for the cycling and walking. We have many schemes already lined up to go. But we also are talking to the bus providers. That's probably going to be one of the quickest ways to make a difference. Obviously, at the moment, people aren't fully back to using public transport in the way that they will, but we assume that that's going to be shortly rescinded, those restrictions. And this enhanced partnership that the government's now brought through, or the requirement for an enhanced partnership that the government's brought through the bus strategy paper, is fantastic, because it essentially allows us to work like we did prior to 1986 when deregulation happened. And it allows us as a council to work with our providers to provide the best service for Hereford. And that brings down prices, that makes a better route, provides a wider network. So that's really exciting. And our bus providers are very up for the challenge.
Councillor Jones.
Thanks. Thank you, John, for this report, and thank you, Steve, as well, for all of your work. I've just got 3 quick points. The first one is I want to do my bit in terms of communication for behaviour change by infusing about what a lovely city Hereford is to cycle around. And I know this because my journey to this meeting involved taking an electric barrel bike from the bottom of Ayleston Hill, Ayleston Park, in the northeast of the city, to here in the southwest of the city. It took 20 minutes only, which is the same amount of time as it would take in a car, and about nearly 3/4 of that was off-road through lovely green off-road cycle track. I recommend it highly, and the e-bikes are just brilliant, the Beryl e-bikes. So anybody who hasn't tried them yet, please do. And I believe our COVID recovery plan, which we're about to talk to, will have something to say on that topic as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing more cycle paths and off-road infrastructure for walking and cycling that makes it so much more pleasurable. Second point, I'd just like to welcome the inclusion in this report of the additional proposals mentioned in paras 13 and 14. I'm really glad that you found some additional funding to address some of those, like, for example, the smart lift sharing, the rural cycle greenways, and carpools. The other half of my journey was done in an electric carpool car. Really want to see those rolled out across the county. They can make a real difference too. And my final point is just a request. Para 17 in this report on environmental impact is fairly generic. I know we've done a great job with our work on transport so far in making sure that we're really assessing climate and biodiversity impacts of all of the proposals. So John, if you could just make a commitment here to ensure that all of the specific transport projects that we're looking at taking forward will have a very detailed assessment of climate and biodiversity impacts done for each of those, both positives and negatives. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that a yes?
Yes, it is yes. I wasn't sure I was waiting for the leader to give me permission to speak.
That makes a change.
First of all, well done for using the e-bikes. They are fantastic. They've been overused. I can't find one because everyone's using them. We are getting one. I understand you're providing some more through your department, which is fantastic. And the point you made is a very good point. We actually do have existing networks, so that there might not be sort of, you know, big, bold cycle lanes, but there are very good existing networks, and we haven't got that information out there. So that is part of the challenge, and that's what we've actually put resource towards. And the final thing, I will of course make sure we assess the impacts. I mean, we have all made a decision as a coalition, you know, to respect the climate emergency, to take it seriously, and anything we do will be based on that.
Councillor North.
Thank you, and thank you very much for this report. Really encouraging to see all the ideas and plans that we have within it. Really very good to see. Thank you, Ellie, for your encouragement. I shall follow your lead at some point, pop off my train from Leicester and onto an e-bike, and off I'll go, ideally along the West Way, I think it's called. I don't know where we're going, of course, but something to look forward to. And I hope one day in Leicester as well, and on the market found. Great to have some of them there as well. I wanted to comment on the opportunities for changes to school travel, essentially, because I think this is fantastic and long overdue. We really do need to get our children and young people walking, cycling as much as possible. Hereford's a very small city. Distances are pretty minimal on the whole. The key issue for parents and children is safety, and knowing that it's safe, and you know, parents are happy for their children to walk or cycle, and that's really very important. But it's got so many benefits. We would like our children to be fitter, healthier, you know, slimmer perhaps, whatever way we want to put it. Being out in the fresh air has got to be good for them. A much better way of getting to school than in a car, adding to the congestion, particularly around schools. Every school has this nightmare issue of you know, parents' cars clogging the place up. So I think there's what's not to like, really. It's got to be a better way for children to get to school. And the ones who perhaps aren't able to walk or cycle, if we can improve the green travel plans, and it's good to hear there's money for schools to develop those plans, then better ways of using buses and reducing distance in some cases will also help that. So I do think there's some really good possibilities in this, which I hope very much we can carry through. They're not new. This is a frustrating thing, or has been a frustrating thing. These ideas have been around for 20 or more years, and we've known that they will make a difference. So it's brilliant that we're now able to actually put something into practice. Just a quick one on the speed. Speed is key in my view. If people are to feel safe We need to have minimal speed limits. So I put in another plea for our 20 miles an hour speed limits in all residential areas. This was broadly agreed by council some time ago, well over a year ago, I think, that in principle we would look at how we can do this. And I really do ask that we follow this through, because slower speeds, everyone will feel safer and will be safer. That's the other thing. We absolutely know that lower speeds reduce accidents, serious accident effects and deaths. So thank you, it's looking great, and I really look forward to this all being rolled out and providing a much better way of life and quality of life for all of us.
Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Rita. Thank you, Councillor Harrington, a brilliant strategy. At long last, we actually see the strategy on the table. I would like to echo Councillor Harvey, Councillor Norman, her welcome addition to saying about 20 miles per hour. You know, my concern around Hereford City is travelling, making our streets safer. And, you know, I want our young children to go out on bikes and be able to get to A to B, go to schools. But if we don't reduce the speed around the city, then there will be parents that won't want to be doing this. So anything we can do to make that happen, I'll be behind you with that, you know that, because that's one of my big campaigns in my area. The speed has to be reduced to make it safer. And I will have a go on the e-bike as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tyler. You make very good points, as did Councillor Norman. And a lot of those points come back to this capacity issue, is that having lots of things that we agree at council and lots of directions that we'd like to go, but not necessarily having the capacity within our teams to start to implement that. We have that now. We're not just relying on a threadbare team and outsourcing major projects. We're able to look at this holistically, like it should have been. And as you say, these are not rocket science. They're not new. Other authorities have been addressing these issues at a much earlier time. Any authority worth its salt, you know, any administration worth its salt should have looked at the traffic and school traffic issues in Hereford and said 20 or 30 years ago, that's something we should address straight away. And we haven't done that. And like everything, if you're not prepared to put the effort and the expense, which is actually considerably less than spending money on enormous bypasses, then you're not going to get the results. So, you lead the way, how you want your residents to live and how we want to go forward. We'll be taking up all of those.
Councillor Davis and then Councillor Croft.
Yes, again, thanks for the strategy, which I know a lot of people will be interested in. I can hear the comments online or on my fellow councillors that might talk in a bit. What you're talking about, 20 miles per hour in Hereford City, you can't even go 2 miles an hour. Well, you're all very welcome to come and sit outside my dad's house on Hinton Road and see people going 50 miles per hour. You're very welcome to come and have a look at that. I'm not going to provide refreshments, obviously. But I'm really happy that included in this report is around equality impact assessments, which is really, really important, because I think there's been a misconception here that this administration hates cars. And that's not what anybody's ever said. What they've said is that we should be providing alternatives for those who choose to travel a different way. And for those that can't, we'll make it as easy as possible by reducing that congestion for you. And that is really important to disabled members of our public, who I know have had some concerns. So I'm really grateful that you've got the equality impact assessment in there. I would like to add something, though, that says that can we add consultation with equality groups within the county? They're our experts. And I'd like that to specifically include the Women's Equality Group. Reason for this is that in light of the Sarah Everard case and what we can do to make women feel safe when using other methods of travel, this specifically came up in a recent Wye Valley Trust staff survey on active travel measures, where some staff said that they didn't feel safe to travel any other way. And that could be something to do with lighting. It could be something to do with, nowhere to secure your bikes, etc. So I really like us to work with the Women's Equality Group on that. And the only other one that I would quite like us to do some work on is identifying public toilets as part of this. So your journey might be 30 minutes long. You might be waiting for a park and ride bus, and it's making sure that we've got public conveniences for people across the city, which I think would actually help people. So that's it.
Okay. Thank you. Very good points, Councillor Davis. I should be talking to you about toilets, since that's your point. it's crucial, it's a vital point. And you make a good point about consultation, but actually specific, well, I wouldn't say specific, I mean, half our population have some of these concerns. So, yeah.
We do now have a public toilet.
We do.
I think what Jem was saying is we try and have a plan, which is comes back to this holistic plan for transport, not just in Hereford, but Herefordshire. I can't see any evidence of an actual plan that had lots of different elements that needed to be in it, which we're now getting together, and that includes things like being able to give an understanding to visitors or anyone else where you might be able to pick up, park and ride, or go to a toilet or do anything. And that's coming.
Thank you, Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Leader. Thanks, Steve, for an in-depth report. While you're talking about plans, Councillor Harrington, if you could consider a plan for better signage for traffic movement in the city and its surroundings, that would be really key, I think, in the movement of the traffic. And we all know communication is key. So if those signs are out there, then people can move quicker and easier. Thank you.
Shall I move on to group leaders? I think it's probably appropriate to do that. So I'll go in alphabetical order, if I may. So I'll start with Councillor Fagan, and then after her will be Councillor James and Lester Matthews Wilding.
Thank you, Leader. Well, the Green Group definitely welcomes the commitment to active travel, which has been sorely missing in the city for many years now. And the commitment to providing the infrastructure for active travel is certainly to be welcomed. And we appreciate that there are going to be more buses in Hereford, and that's fantastic. What we do need to make sure is that those buses can actually move through the city and that we can encourage people to get on those buses. So providing sort of park and ride type facilities at the entrances to Hereford will be essential to actually get fewer cars in the city and buses able to move through the city. So the other thing that is extremely welcome in this report is the commitment to school travel, to safe routes to school for children that go to school in the city, either walking or cycling. And I know that a lot of work has already been done on this, so it will be great to see this sort of brought together, and fabulous that the council has the human resources now to be able to do this. Additionally, dealing with the school travel plans, which I believe were abandoned in 2010 and has become a real issue with schools not actually having any direction to move forward with regard to travel planning. So this is really to be welcomed in Hereford and the rural areas outside. And the sorry, that was the key thing. Yeah, and I mean, while we particularly are in support of the active travel measures and the buses and public transport, we're less enthusiastic about a new road, but we accept that Hereford does need to increase its resilience, and so an eastern crossing seems to make much more sense. And so we cautiously welcome that, and certainly if this can improve the congestion issues and therefore the air quality within Hereford, then it's to be welcomed. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fagan. Moving on then to Councillor James. Actually, Councillor James is not here, is he? So we'll move on to Councillor Lester.
Thank you. I just, on behalf of the Conservative Group, make a couple of observations and points, and then I have three specific questions that, if perhaps best directed at Councillor Harrington, if that's okay. The part about it being a comprehensive plan and that being giving options to members of the public to use different modes of transport, that's the right way to go. Obvious, it's a no-brainer, and we really want to provide options for people so they can decide how they move. And if that means using healthier ways of getting about, that should be encouraged, and we welcome that. With regard to ensuring that there's the free flow of buses, the point of having a western bypass is that you're making room, you're detrunking the A49, so you're making room for those buses to move about. And the active travel measures that we proposed were going to be in conjunction with freeing up the city centre, because you've got a bypass facility. If you don't have that, that's going to be problematic to try and free up the city centre, even if you encourage some people to use different modes of transport. And I reflect on the WSP report, and I've said this before, so it's no surprise to you all, but I emphasise page 94. Package D that includes the Western bypass is the one that provides the most resilient package in terms of congestion relief and an overall resilient transport package. So your own report says that, and going against that, I think, is going in the wrong direction, if I can put it that way. Don't mean to be glib, but literally that's what we think. With an eastern crossing, there are going to be challenging environmental impacts to deal with there. And so that is one issue. The other issue, though, is, of course, if you have an eastern crossing, what you're doing is essentially, as I see it, there's no other way of saying it, is you're just encouraging more through traffic. That was the point of linking the A49 to the A49, because you provide a bypass. And if you had the Southern Link Road as well, you have A49 traffic that does not need to enter into the city centre. So even if you have an eastern crossing, which is to promote some resilience, which we remember the initial report didn't include an eastern crossing because for various reasons of the report. But the problem you're still going to have is, even with an eastern crossing, you'll still have through traffic, which is not the best way of alleviating the problems of through traffic and all of that causes. And again, you've still got 59% of the traffic either going in, out, or trying to get through. So I still don't see how an eastern crossing is going to tackle that specific problem. But I note the fact that there's, what's being put forward is lots of different proposals, and the school travel plans, excellent idea, because we all know that congestion is added to when there's the school run. And so, we welcome that type of proposal being put forward. But I have three questions, really. The first one, perhaps if I list them and then Councillor Harrington can go through them. Councillor Harrington mentions the improved connectivity between the A465 and the A49. That would be welcome, seeing as traffic goes down Holme Lacey Road. I'm not clear on what the proposals are for that, so that'd be interesting to find out how that's going to be achieved. The thing I welcome, and I remember it as a younger man, is the hoppers that were in the Hereford city. I think I'll christen them, if they come about, Councillor Harrington, I shall christen them the Harrington hoppers. And I think that would be a very effective way of using the bus network, and so we welcome that. But the point that we would just stress is that anything that has long-term revenue implications is going to be a real challenge for this council. So just greater understanding of what the revenue implications of supporting the bus network would be, because obviously that's got to come out of council tax. And then the third question is a question that Councillor Swinglehurst mentioned, and it just so happens that Councillor Swinglehurst is at this meeting. But earlier on in the year, the question was put to the Cabinet or the Council. The March 2016 Destination Hereford evaluation of the £4.9 million spent on active travel measures by Herefordshire Council between 2011 and 2015 identified a total net change of 2.7% modal shift, with a potential for as much as 3.6%. It says, can the leader tell me what similar benchmark is done to evaluate the modal shift as a result of these active travel measures that are being put forward? We haven't received an answer to that question, but I mention it here because I think it is a really important question to raise here at this juncture, seeing as there is a commitment to spend £90 million on promoting modal shift. So that's my 3 questions, Chair. Thank you very much.
Do you want to deal with this?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Stone. I look forward to the Harrington Hoppers, but I'll accept them just being called the Hoppers again. First of all, the sort of broader points you made originally about the WSB report. Indeed, the package, well, both the kind of bridge packages, whether that was with a road or a bridge, showed quite a significant reduction in congestion with a lot of finance attached to that. The Western bypass had the biggest cost, a total package over £250 million, which, as we know on kind of track record within our council, that is likely to balloon even further and be at least 10 years away from being achieved, according to that report. The important thing about that package as well is that included walking and cycling as part of that package. It also included what your group says you're against, which is considering things like car park levies or workplace car park. So there is not really a huge amount of difference between some of these options and the measures that they produce and the reductions that they produce. And the consultants told us that they have something like a 20% leeway either way in making these. So metrics are important, but they're not something to hang on to. What's important is to consider the bigger picture. What is the most damaging to the environment? What is going to take the longest? What is going to cost the most? What is going to be the least value for money? What can we do more quickly, more effectively, and more environmentally friendly? And the options decided by full council, I might add, and the direction given to us by central government, which is a Conservative government, that led us to the options that we have before you. In relation to the specific questions, the improved connectivity between the A465 and the 49, we haven't got plans for those. We're looking at them. That's the point of putting this money in. But we've now actually got some money allocated to do that, particularly in relation to questions that Councillor Matthews asked about that, making sure that we were able to assess that and come up with solutions if possible. In terms of Councillor Swinglehurst's question, as I said, you addressed that. I think you said that was addressed to the leader in a previous question. That there is this kind of general view very often that people say, well, we've got a big project. Let's say, WSB or other people have done an assessment on a big road transport project, of which, a huge amount of money is going to go into the road. And really, to be quite honest, quite often just a sort of token amount goes into cycle paths. And not very good cycle paths either, because we've been using shared cycle paths, which the government now refuses to support. So the thing is, if you are providing much more capacity for people to travel a different way, including cycle paths, you will get a reduction. And the important thing is all the benefits that come with that as well, in terms of time and cost and the health of the user. I mean, we can give I'm sorry that Councillor Swinglehurst didn't have her question answered more fully previously, and we'll give a full response to that. But essentially, it comes down to the fact that you can do things quicker, more healthily, to have healthier outcomes for everyone else, protect the environment, and have better value by using the strategy that we have before us, which is a multifaceted approach. And what's concerned me in the past is that, we only seem to have had a one strategy approach, which is really big roads, and some token cycle paths, which, as I said, were shared cycle paths. It's not a grown-up way to deal with transport. And I do welcome your views on school transport and public transport, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Matthews.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. First of all, I'd like to thank officers and the Cabinet member for a very comprehensive report. Most of the content is what the independents have been proposing for the past 10 years or more. So I wondered why the officer asked me for a copy of my manifesto going back the last 10 years. It looks as he's looked at it and contains most of it in the report. So like Mr. Burgess, I'm only pulling your leg. But I think this is the most interesting report, which I've got quite enthusiastic about. Some of the key issues: the Eastern River crossing to help boost the economy and reduce city centre pollution levels, to improve the link for emergency service and planned with the option already to place, sorry, I'm going to struggling with this, like you're requiring a few minor changes. Why I say that, Councillor Harrington, I've got here the complete file of the Eastern Route, all there ready to go, subject to a few minor tweaks. And to save coming up again, there's the complete file which we did on the Pontrilas rail link back several years, which I will come to next. When it comes to Pontrilas station, some 12 years ago, I chaired several meetings with Network Rail and others, assisted by opposition members and Councillor Bridges, Edwards and Hardwick. And for a plan, we come up with a plan which was accepted in principle at a cost of 6.8 million. But although it was agreed, regretfully, it was not able to be funded at the time because of the shortage of funding, etc. I'll ask a question on each of those when I come back to it. There's something about the military I want to raise. The key issues as I see them, colleagues, is as follows. Cycle routes and improved public transport. Again, that's something we've been advocating, and in all fairness, I think most members have been advocating for some time. School transport. You get rural schools in particular with 120 pupils, 130 pupils, and you get in excess of 100 vehicles traveling to those schools every day. That can't be right. There must be some means of taking those vehicles off the road with using minibuses or something like that. And as Councillor Harrington has said, it's quite an issue. That's something we've got to address urgently. The bridge solids to Belmont Road, I think that would also help to take a lot of traffic out of the city, and that's something we would like to see pursued whenever possible. The park and ride, etc., is something we should be looking at, and also works buses. Back a few years ago, there used to be 2 or 3 works buses going into Rotherham, Sun Valley and places like that every day. There'd be a work bus coming from Leominster, Ross, they'd pick up the work members of those big businesses, and they all left their vehicles at home. It'd be nice to look at that to see if we could bring that back into operation. We welcome the drive and determination being shown by the Cabinet member and others in particular in respect of the additional river crossing to help get the local economy moving and attract new businesses into the county. It's absolutely essential that we get some movement there, because otherwise the businesses will merely be dying on their feet. Now I'll ask the questions if I may, Leader. The first one is on the key issues in the Eastern Route. Could Councillor Harrington tell me what's the latest feedback from government about funding for the Eastern Route? Secondly, the Pontrilas station scheme. Could he tell me whether the military at Pontrilas have been approached? Because I think if they had have been, that would help to bring funding in quite a big way. So I think that's something that should be looked at. And when it comes to park and beg pardon, using the subsidising buses. Could Councillor Harrington tell me, have they looked into what the cost of subsidising some of the city centre buses would cost, and would it be viable? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Matthews. I will see if governments can pay you for the work that you've done in the past, but I wouldn't hold your breath on that one. There is no doubt that you have championed many of these transport strategies and directions in the past. I know you're particularly keen on decent cycle and segregated cycle lanes. I remember you making that very clear to me when I became a cabinet member. And you have adopted generally a practical approach to transport in Hereford, which has been sorely lacking. So I thank you for your commendations and for your previous work done towards this strategy. In relation to your direct questions, I think you said, have we had updated conversations with the government in relation to funding for the Eastern Crossing? No, not particularly. I mean, one of the issues are there is always money. The problem is having a coherent plan, which comes out of revenue, to be able to go to government at the earliest stage possible and say, can we now have some capital funding? So nothing specific, but we are having those conversations and we are making government departments aware of our plans. In relation to Pontrialis, I don't think we specifically approached, well, it wasn't a project that was run necessarily by the council. I mean, as you say yourself, and others, including the community group in in Ewes Harold and Kent Church, with Peter Ginman and Councillor Ginman and also Professor Clive Staton, have really driven this forward. And it's been an eye-opener to me, actually, because a community project seems to have got further than a council project, and there are probably all sorts of reasons for that. But it's a model that I'm watching closely, and when we came into administration, we very quickly put some resource money so that they were able to get their business plan done by a very, very good consultant, which has now been well received at the FT, and we will await further results on that, further feedback. We can approach. I think Clive and Peter did approach or make reference to the military base because it will obviously be utilised. We could ask that that's considered more sort of significantly. We've also talked to the timber mill. There was a siding, well, there still is a siding there actually. And the timber mill, although it has its timber coming in from lots of different places, it actually sends most of its waste up north on the A49. So actually they would be very, very keen if we were to develop a parkway model there that also had the facility to take freight again at night to resolve some of their issues that they've got. So I welcome all your comments, and I will do my best to respond and to continue to talk with you, Councillor Matthews, because your experience is highly valuable.
Thank you, Councillor Harrington. Just very quickly, Leader, I'd like to thank Councillor Harrington for his enthusiasm. It really enlightens me and encourages me to see that, as you said, Leader, about this 6, 7, 8 years, I'd like to see it's certainly some infrastructure improvements within the next 3.5, 4 years. With the plans all in place, it's only a stretch of road and the bridge. We should really be getting on moving and not listening to these consultants, getting the job done. So, Councillor Harrington, you'll have our full support, and I'll look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. We do need to listen to consultants sometimes, but the unpaid ones are the best kind. So I shall be coming to you more often. Thank you.
Thank you. So finally, Councillor Wilding. Councillor Wilding still, yes, she's on screen. It's frozen.
Always very good.
Councillor Wilding, can you hear us?
Hi there. Yes, I just dropped out. My internet is a bit unstable, but I'm guessing it's my turn to say something for the independence for Herefordshire. So, yeah, we echo the points made by Councillor Fagan. I think they're all really good points. And I also have reservations about the Eastern Crossing, but I do think it's necessary. So there has to be a balance there. Also note Councillor Matthews' support. It's a shame he had to lead a few independents away to form another group, because I think that can't have helped the spirit, the cause of us speeding through the things, but I guess he had his reasons. Going on to what Councillor Lester said, I don't think we need a bypass to affect behaviour change. In fact, a bypass would encourage people to not make the behaviour changes that we all need to make to address the climate change. So, and also, I just dispute what he was saying about bypasses. All they do is create more induced demand and create more traffic. And that's what we're trying to do, cut down on the traffic. So building more roads, all that happens is they get full of traffic. The report on the whole is fantastic. And it's of the utmost importance for businesses and the people of Herefordshire that this strategy goes ahead as quickly as possible. So I applaud Councillor Harrington in his efforts to get it moving as quickly as possible, so that we can all see real benefits to our health and quality of life. And going back to the package E with the Eastern River crossing, we note that this is about resilience for the city. It's not about making more traffic go right through the city. It's about resilience. And I'm pleased to see that, and I'm sure we'd all like to big up Jesse Norman, because he's just come out and said he supports the Eastern River crossing. Not so long ago that he was actually warning the council of a financial disaster if we cancelled the bypass. So it's good to see that he's seen sense. And as have the Welsh Government recently, I see, who are also halting all major road buildings for the moment with a review. So I think this council is showing that it's well ahead of the curve here, and I applaud the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Wilding. I don't know whether Councillor Harrington, you want to sum up, or we'll get straight for the.
No, I think I've said my lot. I won't prolong it any longer. That's fine by me. Thank you. Just one point I did want to make actually is I noticed that earlier, because Councillor Wilding's touched on it, and earlier Councillor Lester made the point about what's a bridge going to do but shovel traffic into a part of the city. The whole point about the review and the work that was just been done is it showed that the biggest concentration of traffic movements is in the northeast quadrant of Hereford. It is not actually Belmont. It is that area, Elston, Tupsney, where people are making a lot of movements. If we provide people like that with an alternative, they will use it, as well as making sure they have the alternatives to cycle and walk safely or get on a decent bus. So it's just really about, you know, providing the solution to our traffic. We only have 7% through traffic. The problems we have are about people trying to get in and around Hereford, not past it, but in and through the city.
Thank you, Councillor Harrington. Well, this is the next step on this journey. The expenditure was approved last February, I think it was, in the budget. We've taken too long really to get to this stage, but we're going to speed up, and we look forward to moving this forward. So if I can put this to the vote. So the recommendation of Cabinet members is as follows. A, Cabinet confirms its priorities for progressing the Hereford Transport Strategy and allocates £1.24 million one-off revenue for 2021-22 as follows. First, 300,000 to progress feasibility and design for safer routes to school infrastructure schemes. Secondly, £150,000 to develop a cycling and walking master plan for the city. Third, £90,000 to support a clear communications campaign and encourage more people to walk, cycle and use public transport, and also supporting COVID recovery. £400,000 to progress the Eastern Road link and river crossing. Fifth, £100,000 to support the updating of local transport plan. And sixth, £200,000 to fund a delivery director and project management support to ensure delivery of this programme of that pace. B, the additional transport proposals outlined in paragraph 13 be noted as providing potential benefits, and that a budget of £250,000 from the settlement monies reserve is allocated to fund the business case development, feasibility work and community support to assess the benefits and determine which projects should be taken forward and inform the future decision making. And finally, C, the delivery director, in consultation with the cabinet member for transport and infrastructure and the chief finance officer, is authorised to take operational decisions associated with the commissioning of technical support required to deliver proposals and activities determined by the cabinet under recommendations A and B. So I can put those recommendations to the vote. All in favour? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. So we move on with that. So I think that is good news. And the next item is more good news. This is about the COVID-19 recovery plan. This item is to approve the recovery plan 2021-22, delivering the immediate actions required to enable short-term economic, community wellbeing and organisational recovery. The plan is centred on three key areas: economy, community wellbeing and organisational recovery. The work will be based on the lessons we've learnt, what our residents and businesses tell us is important, and our understanding of what our county needs for a successful and sustainable future. We must make our recovery from COVID-19 a green recovery. So this item is on page 157 of the agenda pack. I'll just say a few more words of introduction. So this is very much about, it's about money which has come from central government. We have to spend it by next March. I think by carefully monitoring the expenditure within the council, we've managed, we've now got a little over £6 million to spend. And there's a proposed allocation. I think the most interesting aspect of it for me are the proposed projects, which are in the towards the back of the report. So we're looking at encouraging business. As an example, grants to support for the first 6 months of rent, ranging from £2,500 to £10,000 in vacant retail units and business space. We're further support for the Visit Herefordshire, promoting Herefordshire as a great place to stay. And then we're looking at the place itself, safe and welcoming place, returning to towns and the city, encouraging people to get out and about for exercise, and also generally supporting the physical welfare of people. There's reference to commission activities, to encourage and increase activities across all ages, supporting physical activity through improved infrastructure and access to green space. There's a relatively small amount of money on mental health with online toolkits, some attention being paid to educational catch-up for children, and digital poverty and exclusion. I think there's a great opportunity to spread the money around a number of different opportunities, which hopefully will kickstart the economy and encourage people in the community. But for a little bit more information, possibly, I hand over to Roger Allenby.
Thank you, Councillor. I think you covered all of the main points. Thank you. I guess just a couple of things to reiterate, if you don't mind. So it's a plan focused around both economy and well-being, and starting to think about also organisational recovery. So it's a plan that's been brought together from right across the council, and lots of different teams have contributed into the plan today, for which I'm only representing. There's lots of hard work on it from colleagues. The impacts of COVID will be felt for quite some time to come. So we know that unemployment, people claiming unemployment has doubled, has got well over doubled, and 23% since March last year. High levels of youth unemployment as well. There's still quite a large number of people, thousands of people on furlough. As the furlough scheme comes to an end in the coming months, and as business rates start to be reintroduced, will have a further impact on the economy. So even though we're getting towards a point where lockdown restrictions are primarily, and then fully lifted, the impact on the economy and the impact on wellbeing will continue for some time. So these are some short, impactful projects that we'd like to bring forward now to help recovery over the course of the remainder of 2021, 2022. And then, as is in the paper, we are looking then to develop a longer term recovery plan, a kind of a big county plan to look at how we then support recovery over the longer term. That's all to add at this stage.
Thank you, Mr. Allenby. So can I just ask, we've got £6 million here to boost the local economy. How sure can we be that this money will be spent within the time period that's allocated?
It's a good question. Obviously, we want to make sure we use all of the money in the best possible way. So the projects that you kindly outlined and that they're in the recovery plan as an appendix to the decision paper, we've had working groups working on now for a number of weeks in drafting this paper, and the recommendation is, subject to your approval, is to delegate to the respective director in each part of the council to quickly bring forward schemes now to deliver, and we're aiming to have all of those in place and up and running in July and August so we can maximise the money by the end of the financial year. There are some relatively innovative new things in here about how we incentivise people to provide some money to people to get out about spending in the economy, doing things like potentially offering completely free bus travel or cards for bus travel for feral bike usage, as Councillor Chaz mentioned before, encouraging and looking at things like carpool schemes. So we are trying to do some different and short-term impactful activity here, and officers are all working across the council and looking at how we can speedily bring those into play if you do agree with the plan today.
Any questions or comments from Councillor Chance?
Thank you very much, Roger, and to all of the other officers who have worked so hard on this report, because as you say, it's, this isn't just an economy report, it's really an integrated one involving economy, community and with environmental principles at its heart as well. I just wanted to mention, many of us were at the parish summit last night, and it was brilliant to hear such positive feedback from the parish councils that were represented there, in particular on talk community and the work that's been done coordinating with parish councils on providing that community support during this last 15 months of really challenging times. And it was also really great to hear very positive feedback about the speed and the responsiveness of the support to businesses, the financial support to businesses that has been going out again over the last 15 months. The council officers working on that have, I know, worked their socks off to get money out to businesses as quickly as possible to support them through this really difficult time. So I'd like to really pay tribute to all of their hard work on that as well. It's really great that we can now kind of begin, hopefully, to take that deep breath and turn our attention to the rebuilding, the building back better, the moving on. And like Roger has said, we've got some innovative ideas here that are rooted in the principles that inspire this administration, our commitment to thriving communities, a thriving economy and a thriving natural environment as well. And so we've thought a little bit outside the box, but doing super sensible things, helping people to get around in our towns, using public transport and active travel measures, reinvesting in the local economy by enabling people to spend in the local economy on stuff that really benefits them, supporting well-being, all of the work in here about helping people to get outdoors and get active. There's mental health support, there's support to help people get back into work, a whole range of things that I think add up to a really, really positive package of a kind of a boost, a kind of injection of finance and effort and ideas into regenerating our economy and helping to set our communities up even better for the future as we come out of this really, really difficult time. So just very positive about this. And yeah, thank you to everybody involved over the last 15 months and involved in thinking through these ideas about how to go forward.
Councillor Norman.
Thank you very much. Yes, well, agree with everything that has been said by Councillor Chowns. This is absolutely talking about building resilience, and it's interweaving the elements that affect all our lives. So we're talking here about healthy environment, healthy economy, and ultimately healthy communities and individuals. They all interact with each other, and I think it's really important we have that holistic overview of what we're doing and why we're doing it, and also that we see this as long term. We're addressing a particular issue that's created havoc, as it happens, although we've addressed it in a very positive way. But these are the directions I would hope very much we'd be working on for the longer term. So just to take one example, we know that children in school are very anxious, that they are showing signs of emotional disturbance. This is common across the country, it's not just locally. And is it surprising? They've had very uncertain lack of schooling, home-based, missing opportunities to mix with their friends and often to see many parts of their families as well. So it's not at all surprising that we're seeing those signs. Add to that the fact that many families are unemployed, have uncertainty as to the income coming in, no clear indication of when that will change for the future. This is all creating an atmosphere that creates unease, anxiety, and affects everybody's mental health in some way or another. So all addressing these issues in the different ways we are will be helping to reinforce that resilience and helping to support families, give them a bit more confidence and certainty as far as we're able to do that. Obviously, that's not a role for us entirely, but it's part of what we can do, working with all the other partners, national government and all the rest of it. So to me, this seems like a really excellent plan, but in particular, because each part reinforces the other, it's a interwoven plan. I think it's really important that we are working in that way now, clearly for this particular crisis that we face, but for the longer term as well. So thank you. Great plan.
Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Leader. Some really exciting opportunities for adults and communities over the next year. The Talk Community is an ever expanding programme, and we are supporting and information giving in a much bigger way throughout this short time. We are encouraging the Get Active programme. This is, I hope I'm not saying it out of timing, because we are launching this week, I do believe, the free activities throughout the summer for children throughout the county. So that's an interesting project. Look on the website, it should be on there now. Mental health, we are accelerating the online toolkits. We all know that throughout lockdown, everybody's services have been interrupted, but we need to make sure that people are accessing things that they need and improving their mental health. We're also going to be providing digital training, and that will be in the libraries. And we know Councillor Davis is really passionate about her libraries, and we will be taking those opportunities to the community settings as well. And again, this will be a year-long programme. So exciting opportunities.
Thank you, Councillor Crockett. Chief Executive, when you have the observations, it's interesting. This is a lot of money which is under your first opportunity really to spend. You know, had some lots of good news, but this is really good news. It's a great opportunity.
It is. It's a really good news story for the council. I think two key principles here. One is about bringing forward those initiatives in the county plan that we can deliver at a faster pace and do that sooner. And then secondly, using the funding to almost accelerate high impact initiatives that signal a visible sign of a change for people, and they can see that the council is committed to supporting the local economy in many ways that it can, but also supporting community health and well-being in the range of activities which have been described today. So I think these are highly visible signs of a change from the council that is positively supporting recovery, both in the economy and within the community, through a range of interesting and exciting opportunities, which will prompt further initiatives to come, I have absolutely no doubt, and generate more interest and more excitement, and hopefully further projects to come in the future. So it's a really good sign, good opportunity, and a good news story for the council and the community as a whole.
Now an opportunity for group leaders. Councillor Lester, start with you this time.
Thank you. Yes, we welcome the recovery plan and the spending of the money and the comprehensive way that it looks as though it's going to be spent. Absolutely vital. COVID had a huge impact on the nation, as we know, but it had an impact on Herefordshire, where our concerns are in this instance. And so these measures are welcome and far-reaching, which they need to be, because it's impacted communities and businesses and Herefordshire in ways that we probably didn't really anticipate. But you know, the effect has been comprehensive and far-reaching, and so every penny needs to be spent wisely. But these measures are welcome. We did General Scrutiny Committee did go into some depth into how the council has responded to the COVID crisis, and we will be putting forward our recommendations to the executive, so I look forward to presenting those when they're compiled and presented to the executive. But obviously it matters and how this council reacts and responds to the situation at hand, and this extra money is very welcome and needs to be spent, and this matter dealt with as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. First of all, we also welcome the support and support the recommendations. It's obviously going to be an extremely difficult time over the next few years for everybody. Could I just ask, under key considerations, there's some very sad reading in there. Across the country, alcohol-related deaths have increased by 20%, which is very sad. But if I could ask Councillor Chowns, with Herefordshire, large parts of our economy have been required to close for the majority of the last 12 months, such as hospitality and tourism. Can she tell me whether she anticipates, if the situation improves over the coming months, that hopefully our tourist trade should take off, because people appear to be drawing to the countryside, and as they have done in Cornwall and elsewhere? So can you give me your views on that, please?
Thank you very much, Councillor Matthews, for giving me the opportunity to talk about something I should have mentioned in the first time I talked about, which was the amazing project that we've had over the last year to support the visitor economy. And hopefully everybody's had the chance to look at the revamped Visit Herefordshire website, which is looking brilliant. We're doing a great amount of marketing across the country now. And in fact, the tourist industry, aside from restrictions, but when it's allowed to operate, has actually been performing really, really well. We're hearing from stakeholders in the visitor economy group that bookings are going really well. So in some ways, once the restrictions are lifted, there's a real opportunity for Herefordshire to put itself a bit more on the map, and that's what we've been investing in over the last year. And there's additional funding in this plan that we're hopefully going to approve today to continue that work, because Herefordshire is a beautiful year-round destination. You know, it's a stunning place to come and camp in the summer. There's fabulous walks, but of course you can walk and cycle all year round. Beautiful, you know, country pubs with roaring fires and fantastic food. We're becoming more and more of a foodie destination as well. We've got adventure activities, beautiful River Wye, so much to attract people here. So I'm really pleased that that's a key plank within this particular plan as well. And in answer to your specific question, yes, it's working well already. You know, we're getting great feedback from the hospitality operators. Once opening is fully opened up, I'm anticipating it being even better. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Chown. Just briefly, Leader, the Chief Executive, and I know you yourself, we've got so many pressures on us with climate change and all the other issues, but unless we get the economy going, you know, if we don't provide the jobs for people to be able to pay their way, we're in serious trouble. So could I ask Councillor Chowns that 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 is one of our priorities, to get the economy moving and provided the well-paid jobs that we desperately need.
Absolutely. You'll see that it's central to this plan. It runs through it. For example, we've got measures in here to support new startup businesses, to support businesses to locate in some of the new facilities that we've got as well. And we were just talking about tourism. Tourism is worth 10 times more than agriculture to the national economy. It's an area that we've underinvested in, unfortunately, I think, in Herefordshire over the years, and we're rectifying that now. So I think that we're building a more and more diverse economy. We just had fantastic news just last week, 22-point-something million pounds, 22.4 million pounds for Hereford City to invest in economic development through the Stronger Towns initiative. We're setting aside our own money to invest in the market towns and developing new work to support the rural areas as well. So economic revitalisation is a core part of our agenda, and we don't see that in tension with our environmental and community ambitions at all. We see it as totally working as kind of linked threads so that we get a sustainable economy that will benefit everybody in Herefordshire. Thanks.
Thank you. Keep up the good work.
I think if I may, I'll use the opportunity to ask the chief executive about how we might be working with business going forward. In the report, it mentions about by the end of 2021 establishing a long-term economic vision for 2050. I think we feel that we need to articulate this, and we need to work with businesses and with the whole community to have a vision, a long-term vision for the county.
Yes, please, thank you, Leader. There's two immediate things that come to mind. Firstly is, our proposal to hold an economic summit over the summer, which will bring together business leaders, not just within the city, but also to take that same event out into the market towns, bring business leaders together about our ambitions for the economy across the county and how we can use the economic recovery plan as a catalyst to making that happen. And, again, pointing to those immediate visible signs of a change and the injection that's going into the local economy, and starting to build relationship across the business sector and build on the good work that's happened so far. And then that will take us into a conversation which looks at the ambitions for the county in the longer term. And what's the 2050 big plan for Herefordshire County? Not just in terms of the economy, our communities, what happens within the city, and what's happening within our rural community and well-being across the county, and how we bring those ambitions together and set out a long-term vision for the county, the centrepiece of which will be the economy. There are lots of voices and opinions to be heard. We want to bring those together and listen to what the ambitions are and how we develop those and bring together a cohesive set of ambitions for the county, which adopt a longer term view and allow some of our short term ambitions to fit into our long term ambitions and what we want to achieve for the people in the county that we serve. So that's an exciting proposition for which we're developing the ideas, and we'll share that proposition as we go forward.
Thank you. Moving on then to Councillor Wilding.
Thank you, Leader. Can I just say welcome to our new CE. Hi, Paul. It's nice to meet you in a meeting. I haven't had a chance to welcome you properly. The Coalition fully support this recovery plan, especially the aims and to create the opportunities to create greener, fairer economy and to create more green jobs. A lot of people have talked about jobs. I think the government wants us to fit 600,000 heat pumps every year. Currently in the country, there are about 1,000 installers. So there's an opportunity, a massive business opportunity to train up people to fit those heat pumps. And they can all try and fit 1,000 a year. That will get them going. So I really welcome it, and let's get on with it. In terms of risk, I think the only real risk is that we allow things to go back to normal without learning the lessons that this crisis has made so apparent, that friends, family, quality of life are the most important things and we need to preserve them. That means preserving the planet. It means looking to a greener future, but embracing the business opportunities that are staring us in the face. So let's use them. Thanks, that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Wilding. Councillor Vega.
Yeah, thank you. The Green Group certainly welcomes this recovery plan, and also we know that a lot of businesses in the county really appreciate the proactive way in which the council has taken the grants, the business grants forward, and supported the business community through this extraordinary time. Also talk community, how successful that has been, how extraordinary that it should have been launched just prior to this COVID period, and also the community groups within the county that have supported the people within their communities who are more vulnerable and who have really struggled during this. And we certainly think that the impact on the sort of emotional health of the county has been enormous, probably a bigger impact than on the health. And this recovery plan should sort of go a long way towards helping us move out of that period of uncertainty and improve the emotional well-being of residents in the county. I think it's important to remember that while our economy relies a lot on the well-being of the environment as well, and so while this recovery plan, and it's welcome that it's a green recovery plan, we must keep putting the emphasis on how we look after our environmental resources in this county. So Councillor Chan's mentioned tourism, how significant tourism was to the county's economy. So it makes sense for us to keep looking after our environment as part of our economic plan. Thank you. Oh, and also, sorry, apologies. I just wanted to say that we welcome the hybrid model of working, which has enabled me to be sat here and interact with you there. And unfortunately, I also have to leave. I've got to get back to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fagan. So I think there's no reason to delay. I'll put this recommendation to the Cabinet members as follows. Recommendation that the COVID-19 recovery plan 2021-22 is approved, implementing up to £6.144 million of COVID-19 funding to deliver the immediate actions required to enable short-term economic, community wellbeing and organisational recovery. And the Director of Economy and Place, Director Adults and Communities, Director Children and Families, and Director of Public Health be authorised to take all operational decisions to implement recommendations, including but not limited to the procurement and commissioning of the identified projects as set out in the detailed action plan in Appendix A. All those in favour, raise a hand. Thank you very much. So now we'll move on to item 8, which is new arrangements for commissioning home care. This again is a good news story. It's exciting that we can actually move forward with this. Laura, thank you for your work on the report. I'll just begin. The idea of this is to approve a tender for a new home care framework, which will commence from 1st of November 2021 due to the cessation of the current framework. This will ensure high quality providers support the eligible needs of adults to remain safe and independent in their own homes as part of the strategy to keep people in their homes. That's the best place in most cases for them. So this item begins on page 177 of the agenda pack, and I will pass over to Councillor Crockett for her introduction.
Thank you, Leader. So for consideration today, we've got new arrangements for commissioned home care. The recommendations are set before you from A to E. And Care Act 2014, as we probably all know, places a statutory duty on the council to have arrangements in place to meet the care needs of people with eligible assessed needs. The council currently procures commissioned home care via an approved provider list, i.e. care at home. As the leader has pointed out, 12 months notice of cessation has been served on the approved list, which expires on the 31st of October. Alternative arrangements are required from the 1st of the 11th, and a new framework is proposed. These proposed new arrangements are the result of extensive co-production with service providers and stakeholders. The report has been to adult scrutiny and recommendations have been accepted as per Appendix 2. I'd like to introduce Laura Tyler, who's our Head of Care Commissioning, and she's going to go through a few slides and then we'll take some questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. I wasn't intending on going through some slides. I just thought I might give you the overview because I think you probably had the opportunity to go through the slides, but just give you an overview in terms of the project and where we are. So it's actually my pleasure in presenting this today. It's been a huge amount of work, I think, across the directorate and across our stakeholders, including health, to deliver this. So as you know, including in the report, we currently support in the region of about 750 people at any one time, and currently by 28 approved providers that are currently on the list. The majority of our customers are elderly, as we'd expect, with 85% of them over the age of 65. The home care commission service, we commission on average around about 9,500 hours a week, and it equates to an annual gross spend of just in the region of about 10 million a year, certainly was last year. So the current arrangement for purchasing and commissioning home care is due to come to end, as Councillor informed us. So commissioners have led a really, and I do emphasise, a really strong collaborative approach in redesigning the home care framework with providers, health officers across different directorates and the teams, making it real board as well as it being heard by adult scrutiny committee very recently. The service is really highly valued by its customers and supports, as we said, the principle that home is best, and where we can, we aim to support people to remain safe and independent for as long as possible. So that was clearly a statement we made in the market position statement, and it was a clear direction of travel that we were going to look at this framework. As part of the overview can be found in Appendix 1, but in terms of the design principles, I just want to emphasise that they have really particularly focused on minimal disruption to the customers. So the current customers with current providers will remain if they wish to do so. I just want to emphasise that. And the new framework from the 1st of November will relate to new customers going through that framework. The focus is about ensuring quality home care provision. We know that sometimes it's quite difficult, particularly in the rural areas. So we've had particular problems picking up raw packages from the providers. So as part of this redesign, one of the expectations as part of the contractual terms and conditions will be that they will have to pick up a proportion of raw packages. It's about improving customer experience, making better use and improving the use of technology, which again is a strategic priority for us, and improving the operational viability of providers to ensure we have a sustainable, good quality market, and also around reducing the environmental impact of service delivery by moving to a locality model. So by aligning to the four localities as detailed in Appendix 1 and reducing the numbers of providers, we're hoping it will ensure that providers will receive the volume they need to be sustainable. It will enable us to set a really strong foundation to work with them on an integrated health and social care agenda as part of the national drive for that integration. We also want to be able to increase the use of technology and, more importantly, really embed the talk community hubs and that model as part of that agenda. We know, particularly, unfortunately, that the older resident population are increasingly becoming socially isolated. So that's a really key thing for us to try and link those agendas together. But essentially, we want the providers to have a good or outstanding quality and put their clients' needs at the heart of all they do. And also, really key to this is to look after their staff. But we want the providers to come on a journey with us, to be innovative, creative, ensure that the customers, our residents, receive the best quality of care that they can receive and that they deserve. So that is the heart of what we try to do in terms of redesigning the framework, and we're hoping that we've done a really good job. Service specifications are very much nearly finalised now. Hopefully we'll be finalised by tomorrow. They are really, I think we're quite proud of it, and I know I've got the officer Ian Gardner who's been leading on this on Zoom. But they really do, I think, emphasise the wide range and our wide agenda that we're trying to achieve across adults and communities, and really focus on that community support and really good quality provision. So requesting from Cabinet today, obviously, to approve recommendations A to E, and I'll open it up for questions to the councillors.
Thank you, Laura, very much. Anybody who wants to start with any question? Laura, I suppose what I've taken from this is the amount of work that's been put into this. So from an economic perspective, perhaps it seems to me that we might be interfering somehow in the market. So the market has grown in a particular way. There's quite a lot of small providers. I mean, aren't they people who are going to actually end up losing out a bit? Although I've read the report, it seems to me quite clear that you actually consulted with them. You're not doing this just, you're not saying we're doing it because we think it's a good thing. You've actually been actively going out there and talking to these people. And the hope, I guess, is that there won't be a backlash afterwards because we're interfering with taking people's living away from it. You're doing things to protect that. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a fair summary. The officers have literally been working with providers for over a year. We've been seeing this has been coming for quite some time, and they've been part of that design. They are telling us that they need that volume in terms of their own sustainability. Where we've got small providers who are delivering less than 200 or 100 hours, which we do have quite a few, then none of them at this point are signaling that they will go out of business as a result of this. As you know, we've got a high number of self-funders across the market, so there is opportunity for them to do that. And and a lot of the providers, the local authorities' business isn't all of their business, so they're going to look at redefining and looking at where they can refocus. So at the moment, that's not been signalled. It hasn't been done so throughout, and they are very, worked really well with us, and I don't have any hesitation that any of them would not come to us if they thought that there was going to be, serious implications on their business moving forward. But they know that if at any time they want to have that conversation, then we are always there to have that conversation with them. So yeah, a lot of collaboration with the market and really listening to what they're telling us, as well as ensuring the customers' needs are met. Because for us, that's the first and foremost. We've got to make sure that those eligible needs of our customers are met in a timely manner, and it's of good quality.
And you put some safeguards in. I think the winning bidders can't have more than 2 areas or something like that. So you can't have monopoly power. And also I like the way that you're saying you can't cherry pick just a nice area and an area where it's economically very viable. You've got to take on some which is less viable. And I thought that was very, very clever to have done that.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. We've mixed it up, and the market is pretty responsive. But as you know, we've got some really difficult rural areas, where you've got, you can spend sometimes an hour from between calls. So what we've done is we've designed it to ensure that it's viable, that they can have viable rounds, and they'll be able to build upon that. Hence why the length of the contract is 4 years plus another 12 months, because it will give that the opportunity to build those locality areas. Some are already delivering in locality areas, so it won't be new for some of the providers who may want to tend for that position. But there are other providers who are working right across the county and travelling quite large distances. So what we're trying to do is think about the environmental impact upon that as well as part of our modelling, and that's part of the service specification as well, is requesting and signalling that we want them to be thinking very much about how they manage their rotors and what transportation they use. You'd be quite surprised to, I think we've got quite a high number that actually are what we call described as walkers, not crisps, but walkers in the city. You know, who do walk between some of the calls, but clearly for some of those very rural areas, that's not appropriate or feasible.
Yes, I noticed Dalton Valley only have 14 customers. I mean, that's a huge area. It must take a long time for people. Any other observations, questions from any of the cabinet?
Yeah, just a couple of different ones. It's really great that we're building into the commissioning the desire to look after care workers, pay and conditions, and really looking after people. That's so important, and I'm sure not everywhere does that. So I'm really, really happy about that. The phrase technology-enabled living sort of slightly makes me, just makes me look a bit wary. I know there's some great stuff out there, and we also all know that the old people we know, including my mother, they don't want an app and they don't want something that's going to tell, somebody every time they get in and out of their chair. But they want people. So I'm sure you know that, but I'm just raising it because I know in lots of places it's coming in maybe more for the convenience of the authorities than what people really want. So,
Absolutely, and I think we've certainly heard this from individuals as well. So it is about ensuring that balance is happening, isn't it? And and technology can do very different things and offer very different solutions. But it's not about replacing care with technology, because clearly that's not going to be viable. It's about where possible to complement that.
Yeah.
And even if we can get people to do more for themselves, so let's try and do that. And also for us, it's around when we talk about technology, we also talk about call monitoring. So as part of the service specification and the contractual regulations, we're asking them to ensure they've got a call monitoring system in place, so then we can audit what they're doing, how they're delivering, are they going on time, are they missing calls, anything like that. We'll have a really good audit trail of that. So that includes that technology side of things that we would expect providers to be doing that. But really just to go and move with us and to support that new agenda, because things are changing very quickly. And I absolutely take the point, but I think even COVID has really changed so many people's mindsets in terms of technology and what it can do. And actually people have been much more receptive to that. And I think that's trying to build upon that now and see where it takes us, because there are so many possibilities in terms of innovation and creativity. I think we can do with providers, and we'll be able to do that. We'll have a good number of providers who will want to go with us on that journey.
Thank you, Leader. Just to come back on that one, Councillor Toynbee, I just wanted to make you aware that technology isn't only for the cared for person, it can be for the carer. I myself have an app that I can check up on my mum to make sure she's well, and that gives me a great feeling of comfort. So it's technology is technology, and it's useful in certain places.
Councillor Harrington.
Yes, thank you. I noticed in paragraph 28 of the front page, you've mentioned about employment, basically, staff recruitment and otherwise. I'm just wondering, because low wages and retention of staff is a real problem in the care industry, and particularly anywhere, but particularly in Hereford. And it seems that it's not often an occupation that's, I would say, necessarily respected or properly remunerated. And I just wondered how this policy, you've not really mentioned either way, but is this policy going to help, do you think, or otherwise? Are there other things that we could do to try and, as a council, to impact on that, which is essentially a free market?
Absolutely, that's a really good question, Councillor. I think by having I suppose call it consolidation of some of the providers, what we've spoken to them about is some of the smaller providers may not be able to offer the terms and conditions that maybe a larger scale would be able to do. So we're hoping that by doing that will improve that, and we've also had conversations with some of the providers around that.
Progression through the ranks.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as part of the other side of the thing of that is that we're doing a huge amount of work around around the Care Hero branding. We're going to rebrand of that. So we're working with the providers on what that looks like and looking at what the opportunities are in terms of training, in terms of progression. So we're revamping all of that work at the same time to really encourage people into care. And I think linking back to the COVID period, it's a really good opportunity to build upon that, because they've been, and I have to take this opportunity to say how absolutely fantastic our care providers have been throughout the pandemic. Absolutely incredible. I mean, it's just a privilege to be able to work with them. And I think let's build upon that and let's bring them into care and show them how vitally important they are. In paying conditions and are part of that, but also having a real sense of being part of something really important. I think is something that we want to really I suppose build upon now, and it's a really good opportunity to do that.
Okay, I think I'll move on and ask for any comments from group leaders, starting off with Councillor Matthews.
Thank you, Leader. I read in the purpose, this will ensure high quality providers support the eligible needs of adults to remain safe and independent in their own home. I warmly welcome and support this, which my colleagues do as well. This report, it's well overdue, so I'm delighted by that. If I could just go on and ask one question, Leader, on page 183 under risk opportunity. The lack of interest from current providers in the new arrangements. Providers may discontinue the delivery of commissioned care and focus their activity on self-funders. It is estimated that provision to people who purchase their own care equates to 30% of the care delivered by approved providers. However, as stated in the previous mitigation, there's currently no indication where to go. There mightn't be no indication, but if that did happen, what would be the implications?
Nora, do you want to?
Thanks for your question. So as part of their current contractual terms and conditions, they have to give notice. So we have got a notice period of time if that was going to happen. So at the moment, as it says in there, there's nobody signaling that that's going to happen. I think providers really do care about their customers, and I think that will continue to do so. The customers will probably continue with that provider. We have also got obviously our in-house provision if we needed to be able to rely upon that on home first, which clearly don't want to rely upon that. But there are other options that we've got. We know that providers, and we know the providers that we can go to if any of them pulled out at any point. So we can swiftly, and we have done previously. I mean, it has happened in previous years. And so we're pretty good at responding very swiftly to anything like that may happen. But as I said, at the moment, and then we have had one-to-one conversations, we've had group conversations with providers. None of that has been signalled at all that is going to happen. I don't know, Ian, if you want to come in there at all, but
no, that's fine. I thank you. I warmly welcome the recommendations, and it has our full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Councillor Tyler, I'm sorry, Councillor Wilding.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, we also warmly welcome the report. I think there's some really good stuff in there. I just wanted to point out a couple of things. They're not criticisms, I'm just pulling them out. So point 29 about disruption and people getting anxiety from disruption, changing of providers. I think that's very true. So I think a regular routine helps prevent that anxiety in older people. So that I welcome. The environmental impact, I think it's a good idea to have included that in everything. But I do think that this is one of those areas where common sense dictates that efficient travel between clients is going to make the carer's job easier. So it's one of those occasions where I'd relax my my feelings of wanting to get rid of cars and roads and everything. It obviously helps if the providers can get around. And then when we were talking about tech, of course, this is one of the areas where it's useful for the carers, but not so useful for the customer particularly. Although my own experience is that my aging mother, who's virtually blind, has made a great friend in Alexa. Other robots are available, of course. But I wonder if there's any way that Herefordshire Library Service can supply more reading books to apps like Alexa, because it's quite expensive to buy books on those sort of things. If the library service could somehow provide free books to that sort of service, I think that would be a great boon to people that like to listen to books on that service. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilding. I'm sure Councillor Davis will take that. I'm just doing writing an email now.
We already do it, is what I was going to say. It's been going since the start of COVID crisis. It was the first thing that we introduced, and it's been used so much and has been a lifeline to certainly one person who was disabled living at home, and it prevented them with social isolation. So absolutely, I'll see if they can get more books on there.
Can I just comment on the, I know Councillor commented on, the customers being a bit anxious about it. We just to reassure the committee that we have written to every single customer currently on there and offered, reassurance and a helpline and a number to ring if they were concerned at all. But given them the reassurance that nothing should change for them at this moment in time, but signaling that this was going to happen because it's got to go through the public domain. But so nobody so far has contacted with any concerns. We will subsequently write again this week to customers to confirm, subject upon approval today, that this is going to happen. And we will continue to do that. And we work really closely with our operations colleagues around that to ensure that those communications are consistent and supportive to the customer. Just to offer that as part of some additional reassurance for the customers.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lester.
It's not online anymore.
No, okay, well. And Councillor Swinglehurst, it did go to scrutiny committee. I don't know whether you want to comment at all on this.
I will. Thank you. Thank you, Leader. It did indeed come to the scrutiny committee, and Adults Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee welcomed the new arrangements for Commission Home Care and recognise the importance of this element of social care. The committee noted and praised the efforts of the Directorate to engage with stakeholders and providers and build on relationships to enable service delivery and future innovation. And the committee will be content to note that all recommendations have been approved by the executive and actions are already underway. There was a discussion around the consolidation whole market approach, and this is reflected in the recommendations, along with the importance of communication in engaging with the wider group, and the importance of Healthwatch and the excellent Keeping It Real board, amongst others, in communicating service change. And it was also very good to see that there'll be a self-funded action plan coming forward, and they'll be reviewing various creative options as part of this kind of holistic approach. The committee emphasised the role of innovation, creativity and technology in designing services fit for the future, and recommendations to support providers in using technology-enabled living to deliver services. There was support for recruitment within communities to deliver services locally, particularly in rural areas, and for further work to improve the employment offer, including enhancing the role of carers and encouraging those reskilling and returning to a career in care. And finally, I can see that in response to the committee's recommendation, Leader has already drafted and sent a letter to government for clarification on their stated intention to deliver social care reform, and as and when that's possible, I'd be grateful to see a copy of that letter. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I'll put the recommendation, if I may, to the committee, to the cabinet. First, recommendation A, that a framework for purchasing of commissioned home care services be introduced from 1st November 2021. B, the duration of the framework will be 4 years with the option to extend for a further 12 months. C, applicants' admission to the framework will be determined by competitive tender. D, the Director of Adults and Communities is authorised to take all operational decisions necessary to implement the above recommendations. And finally, that Cabinet approves the response to the scrutiny recommendations in Appendix 2. All those in favour? Very much. Right. Well, this is the last meeting in Herefordshire that the Director of Adults will be attending. So I just want to pass on a heartfelt thank you to Steve for his fantastic efforts for us as a county. We've had today two things. This morning we had a cabinet briefing from the adult principal social worker, and the sort of presentation was fantastic. The scorecard, the quality of that department is just fantastic. Stephen, we're really indebted to you. And this afternoon we've had a presentation from Laura. I mean, you have recruited some most fantastic people to your team. They're all on. They're not allowed to leave for 3 or 4 years. Actually, that's not true. It's Laura. I'm afraid. already going somewhere else. But it's a promotion. So I suppose we can't mind if people leave for promotions and better jobs. This is seen as a county where people can come and learn and then move on. And I know, Stephen, there are a number of awards which we're up for, aren't we, at the moment? Councillor Crockett mentioned this to me, and I think you're escaping before we actually get those.
Yeah, we're certainly looking at a range of awards around practice and other developments that we've got. Our social care awards are coming up. But the team deserve all the praise. They're the ones that do all the hard work. So they'll take forward what we've put in place already, and I wish them all the success that they deserve. And they'll want to win those awards. Otherwise, as I said before, it's a fix.
And I'm sure, Stephen, you've embedded the culture. That's the important. That's the sort of lasting heritage. So yeah, that's great.
Well, I think if you listen to, as you said earlier, Michelle Jones's principal social, listening to Laura here today, and actually also listening to members and the support of members, I think it's a culture and an understanding of what good strengths-based practice, good community-based practice really looks like. And that is the culture that we try to install within Herefordshire. And I think just listening to the conversation today, and certainly looking at Laura's work and her leadership and that of the rest of the team, I think it's evident that that culture is well embedded and something really positive to take forward.
Don't know, not a round of applause. Well, thank you very much for everybody for attending. The next meeting at the moment is scheduled for Thursday, the 22nd of July. And please can I have confirmation that the live stream has stopped?